With Tom Verducci, I'm Bob Costas as we continue MLB Network's countdown of the 20 greatest games of the last 50 years. And Tom, in a sense, the meaning of this game and the comeback it started went back 86 years.
And if you haven't guessed by now, here's a little hint about greatest game number 17.
Don't let us win this game tonight. Then they get Petey, and then they get Shield game 6. In game 7, anything happens. Hopefully, their hands have blisters on them from yesterday's route. Maybe they have blisters. Maybe Matsui's got blisters on his hands. I don't know.
Wait a minute. Number 17, timeout. We shocked the world. 86 years, Cowboy up. Should be number 1 or something, boys.
Number 1, be happy you're even on the list. Here we go with number 17. Okay, Tom, so as we take a look at game number 17 on the list, Kevin Millar obviously is with us, one of the ringleaders of the self-proclaimed gang of idiots who finally broke the 86-year curse in Boston. But you'd have to literally be an idiot not to recognize a stacked deck. There had been 25 teams prior to this series in '04 that had gone down 0-3 in a best-of-7 World Series or LCS. None of them had even forced a 7th game, let alone come back to win the series. Plus, the day before, to go up 3-0 at Fenway, they had pummeled you 19-8. Talk about coming off the deck. You'd been all but counted out.
Well, I think if you're going to lose a game, let's lose a game 19-8 and all the doubles and home runs that were going on. But this team, you said the key word, idiots. We somewhat believed that if we could just get on the board, we have a chance.
Well, I remember on the back of the clubhouse door, it's the last thing the Red Sox see before you go out to the field. It says in big red letters, "We can change history. Believe it." Come on now. Do you really believe it?
You know, you didn't believe it if you had to say we got to beat the mighty Yankees 4 straight games. How are you going to do that? But you believed it if we could just get on the board and find a way to win game 4.
Now, everybody knows, or at least in some sense they know, the long and scarred history going back to 1918. But let's just talk about what was then recent history. The year before, Game 7 at Yankee Stadium, you're up 5-2 in the 8th with Pedro on the mound. The game slips away.
5-2 in the 8th. You just said it. Pedro Martinez, your ace. And all of a sudden, they find a way to tie it up, have some great clutch 2-out hits. And the 11th inning, first pitch, Aaron Boone homers and walks us off the field. You want to talk about letting the air out of the balloon? You know, Aaron didn't get a ball to the infield this whole series, was benched, and comes off the bench and hits an 0-0 knuckleball for a home run in Yankee Stadium, a right-hander. It wasn't like a 304-foot shot down the right field line. This is a right-hander that hits a homer in Yankee Stadium.
How difficult is it even now to watch that?
Tough, because I know the exact emotions walking off that field. I know the exact emotion. I know the emotions walking in that clubhouse, Bob and Tom, seeing guys crying, tears. These are men. These are family men, daddies, on their knees crying. I mean, we were that team. That '03 team was going to change history in our minds.
And it's a long history. Babe Ruth sold, last world championship prior to that, 1918. Close calls in 1946. Slaughter scores from first. 1967, a great year, but still they lost in 7 to the Cardinals. The Bucky Dent thing in 78. The ball through Buckner's legs in 86. If it isn't one thing, it's another. And I would imagine down 0-3, Red Sox fans are thinking, well, fait accompli.
Well, they can quote you chapter and verse, everything you just said there, and more, obviously.
And more, because there is more.
And I remember during the course of this game for us, somebody held up a sign that said, "I can't believe I fell for it again," because this team was always good enough just to break your heart.
Right. This group was good enough just to break your heart, it seemed like, because the '03 team, about 90% of us were the same guys in '04. We had a few pieces. But this group didn't care about the history. We weren't there in 1986. We weren't there with the Bucky Dent situation. So that was the one thing we did a good job is closing our walls to, like, let's do it. We believed in each other. We weren't the best group talented-wise, but we believed in the team.
All right, let's take a look at the lineup that night at Fenway Park. The Yankees, by the way, had won the American League East 7 consecutive years, counting '04, and the Red Sox had finished second. 7 consecutive times. Lost to them in the ALCS in '99 and, of course, in '03. So here is the lineup that Joe Torre put on the field.
Not a bad lineup, huh? You got Alex Rodriguez hitting second. This was a Yankee team that broke the franchise record from the great '61 team for home runs, since broken, but in 2004, this was the biggest home run hitting team in Yankees history.
Now they're going to start Orlando Hernandez. More on that in a minute. Here is the Red Sox lineup. Damon at the top, Cabrera, Manny and Ortiz and Veritek in the middle. Trot Nixon, there you are, Kevin. Bill Millar, Mark Bellhorn at the bottom.
And don't forget, we talked about the Yankees' power. This Red Sox team actually outscored the Yankees by 52 runs. We are talking about a clash of titans, the number 1 and number 2 offenses in the league.
Now, the starting pitchers are El Duque, Orlando Hernandez for the Yankees, and Derek Lowe gets the call for the Red Sox, and there are backstories in both cases.
Well, somewhat reluctantly, they give the ball to Derek Lowe. I mean, it was supposed to be Tim Wakefield's game. But in that ridiculous 19-8 game, he volunteered to go out there and pick up innings for manager Terry Francona. Wound up throwing 3 1/3, so there's no Tim Wakefield here. And Derek Lowe, a guy who had lost his spot in the rotation, suddenly is, we need you, Derek, go get him.
And we didn't like the matchup. Well, I didn't like the matchup personally with Derek Lowe and the Yankees. They did such a great job. Bernie Williams, beside, they went with the sinker, and left-hand hitters were veterans guys. He didn't match up great against the Yankees. So I didn't know how we were going to get by game 4 with Derek Lowe. But if we did, was my statement, because then it starts matching up with Pedro and Schilling and then the human factor in game 7.
Okay, coming up, Kevin Millar on A-Rod and the home run that gives the Yankees the early lead. This is MLB's 20 Greatest Games, number 17. Back with Tom Verducci and Kevin Millar as we continue our look at game number 17 on our countdown to the 20 greatest games of the past half century. It's the Yankees and the Red Sox, game 4, 2004 ALCS. We pick it up in the top of the second inning. It's scoreless at this point. Derek Lowe on the mound facing Hideki Matsui, who is just drilling the Red Sox in this entire series.
Toughest out in their lineup, no doubt about it. He can do everything, go to left, right, breaking balls, fastballs, but he was as tough to get out on this team as anybody in that lineup.
Matsui hit .457 that year in Fenway Park. I mean, they just could not get him out any which way.
No, he hits lefties and righties. That was the thing. There was no matchup. You could bring an Embry, next thing you know, it was a double off the Green Monster. So that's what made him tough.
At that point after the double, he's 10 for 16 in the series. Bernie Williams is the next hitter. Man on second, nobody out.
Now it's Bernie Williams. The 2-2 pitch. Williams grounds it to the right side. He gets Matsui over to third.
And that's the one thing with the Yankees. He's got one job to do, get that runner to third base somehow. We don't have to bunt. He gets a free swing, ground ball to second, and those were the Yankees.
Early strategic decision here by Terry Francona.
Key decision right here, Bob. Brings the infield in. Now, listen, you pretty much have to. Your back's up against the wall. But the execution started because of the decision by Francona to be aggressive here, bring the infield in Fenway Park in the second inning.
And I like it because it makes you, as a hitter, hit the ball in the air. I mean, how many times you see the little ground ball that scores a run early in the game? Hey, any run in this series is big.
Left side. The throw home by Cabrera. Matsui out.
Tremendous throw. The play is a chopper to his backhand side, but that's a tremendous throw to Veritek. Hit him in the chest. Veritek makes the tag. Big out right there for us.
So the Red Sox get out of this inning without another run scoring, or the first run scoring. That's it. So it's still a scoreless game. In the bottom half of the second, the Red Sox go out scoreless. So we'll move to the top of the third. There's A-Rod on deck. Derek Jeter is the hitter against Derek Lowe.
The 1-2. He pulls this one, and it's off the glove of Millar into left. That's a 2-out single for Jeter and keeps the inning alive for Alex Rodriguez.
Running situation right here. The one thing Derek Lowe cannot do is hold runners on. 36 tried to steal, 34 made it.
A-Rod goes into left center field. Back at the wall. Alex Rodriguez has hit one over the monster to make it 2-0 New York.
Okay, so up 3-0 in games. The Yankees are now up 2-0 in the top of the third as A-Rod rounds the bases. And at that point, nobody would be saying what they said for several years after, which is that A-Rod is an October bust. At that point, through his postseason career with the Mariners and now with the Division Series and the first 3 games plus of this LCS with the Yankees, his career October batting average is .375, 6 homers in 88 postseason at-bats. That's A-Rod to that point.
And then suddenly it was if a switch was flicked and he couldn't hit in the postseason, because that game and then the next 17, he's a 136 hitter and doesn't get a hit with a guy on base in 27 consecutive at-bats.
Yeah, and that point, I never thought he was an October bust because he was hitting homers and homers. I think the night before in Game 3, a big home run off Bronson Arroyo. And then, boom, Derek Lowe, first pitch, puts him up 2-0. So he's a headache at that point.
A headache, but also a guy that you and your teammates didn't especially care for.
No, the thing with Alex, I'm sure if he's on your club, you know, he's awesome. Playing against him, it was tough to like, tough to watch because, 1, he's good. 2, he does a lot of things that, you know what, you think he's doing them because of, like, look at me. He might check base runners with his hands and kind of do this. And as a baseball player, when you get on second base, you might check the outfield and just kind of look around. But it was almost like he does a lot of stretching. And then when he hits that home run, he's got that slow trot. And he hits a lot of home runs, so he gets under your skin.
Well, remember the game earlier that season when you had the bench-clearing brawl? It started with Jason Varitek, the catcher, basically giving him a leather sandwich to the mouth. I think that made it clear what you thought about Alex.
Here he is. He's hit by the pitch. And the F-bomb directed toward the mound, and here we go.
Well, and this is the thing. I think Alex Rodriguez, you know, wasn't a Yankee yet. And I think this was his first time trying to solidify himself to be a New York Yankee. Listen, Bronson Arroyo throws a breaking ball, hits him in his arm guard, tries to be the big man. Bronson weighs 114 pounds soaking wet, got a great leg kick. But I think Varitek basically said, go to first base. We got the F-bomb, go to first base. The second F-bomb, Varitek's going for both legs to body slam him on his shoulder. Only gets 1, and now you got 2 big men with 2 big, you know, quads right there, Varitek and A-Rod, and it just turned into that bobble match right there.
Is there really bad blood here between the two teams? We know what the fans think about one another, but a lot of times the players, you know, feel a little bit differently than the fans. It sounds like maybe there was something between the two teams, especially after that game when Varitek says, we weren't throwing at him. We don't throw at 260 hitters.
Yeah, you know, we respected each other, no doubt about it. If you ask the Yankees, they respected the Sox. If you ask the Sox, we respected the Yankees. These are 2 great clubs. But after this game, the whole A-Rod thing happens. Boom, he's a Yankee now. He started a big brawl fight. Now there's real blood. Sturtz is dripping blood. Kapler almost got choked out. Trot Nixon gets thrown out. We weren't supposed to play this game because of weather. The management wanted to call it, the Red Sox management. We basically went in with like Rudy and laid our jerseys on the table. Said, no, we're playing this game. Bronson could win this game. And then Billy Millar, you know, hits a walk-off home run to win the game off Mariano. Was the only guy that did damage off Mariano. I mean, this guy hit Mariano, you know, hard. And so I think my quote that night was, we went 2-0 in one game. We won the fight and we won the game. That basically turned our year around.
But here in Game 4 of the LCS, you're in an early 2-0 hole. Time is running out on the series and the season. When we come back, though, the Red Sox begin to show signs of life. This is MLB's 20 greatest games. Back now with Tom Verducci and Kevin Millar. The Yankees have a 2-0 lead as we pick it up in the bottom of the 5th, and our man Kevin is at the plate.
Bottom 3 in the order for the Red Sox.
I think there's not a pitcher in baseball that doesn't experience a tired arm once in a while. And how I explain it is it's just where you feel like your arm is dead, as if somebody were to punch you in the shoulder 10, 15, 25 times.
Al Leiter's talking about Hernandez having a dead arm at this point. Through his first 13 starts of the season, he was 8-0, ERA 2.5. In his 2 starts preceding this LCS, he was 0-2 with an ERA of nearly 10, and he walks you to start the 5th.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the one thing with El Duque, he could throw breaking balls at any point in hitters' count. So that's what made him tough against righties. But I'm telling you right now, I hated facing him. And to me, he threw the ball well, but you can see him just get a little tired as the 5th inning hit.
They get you at second here, no chance for the double play. But as it turns out, although people remember what happened later more, the walk that you got in this 5th inning was also a big key in the game.
Well, yeah, it basically gets that extra guy up, and now you got a chance where they didn't get the double play, but now you see him walk Bellhorn here, and now you start seeing that the wheels fall off. It's giving Joe Torre a decision to make. Does he bring in a Felix Heredia or get him loose in the bullpen? They only had one left-handed reliever in the bullpen and being Felix Heredia.
Johnny Damon had grounded out, so now it's up to Cabrera. Runners at the corners, 2 out. Red Sox still trail 2-0.
And Orlando Cabrera, I mean, he is a baseball player, and you can see him right here. He's probably sitting soft on a breaking ball. It's a fastball that he gets through the right side and puts us on the scoreboard. But that was a big hit for us.
Not only does that make it a 1-run game, but it brings Manny Ramirez up. One of the few times with men on.
And you could really see Hernandez starting to run out of gas throughout this entire inning. He's pitching around hitters, yes, but he's nibbling, he's missing. It's only a matter of time before the dam is going to burst.
Well, especially you're up 2-0, and you walk me to lead off the inning. It just started there, and then you walk Bellhorn, your 9-hole hitter, and now you're getting into the meat in the lineup where you got the 3-4 with Manny and David coming up.
So Ortiz is on deck, and even though it's the 5th, it is the LCS, and Hernandez is faltering, but Joe Torre has only Felix Heredia in the bullpen as a left-hander, so the option of bringing in the lefty at this point and using him up to face Ortiz isn't there. So here goes Hernandez against Big Papi.
And a guy who got one big hit after another this season and last for the Red Sox, David Ortiz, could put Boston on top with one swing. Ortiz into right center, and the Red Sox have taken the lead in Game 4.
Well, you get used to it after a while. Big situation, big hit for Big Papi.
I've never seen a human being get bigger hits, bigger RBIs than Big Papi did in those series.
But again, all of his big hits are against right-handed pitchers, whether it's Loaiza, whether it's Quantrill, whether it's Hernandez. It's a guy who hits 76 points higher against right-handers. But Torre doesn't really, as you said, Heredia is his only left-handed pitcher. You really don't want to fire that bullet in the 5th inning. And these big hit after hit throughout the whole series, right-hander against the left-hander.
That's the question you have, though. Do you bring in Heredia there? It's bases loaded. It's still the 5th inning, yes, but it's still, against Big Papi.
Yeah.
It could be 4-2 in one pitch. I mean, those are the, we get a chance to second guess, as managers, or baseball is such a great game that way. But that's a big spot. I don't know if there's going to be a big spot, later on in the game.
So at this point, just trying to stave off the sweep, the Red Sox have taken a 3-2 lead. Coming up, why Fenway Park was chanting "Pokey, Pokey." We're coming right back. Welcome back to MLB's 20 Greatest Games, number 17. It's Game 4 of the 04 ALCS. We go to the top of the 6th. After a Gary Sheffield groundout, Hideki Matsui, that guy, is up again against Derek Lowe. And once again, Joe Buck, Tim McCarver, and Al Leiter.
Counts 1-1 on Matsui. Into center field, right center. Damon on the run, can't get to it. That ball is into center field all the way to the wall, and Matsui will end up at third base with only 1 out. He's the tying run. Hideki Matsui with yet another extra base hit. He's doubled tonight, now tripled.
And here's what he did for the series. 14 for 34, that's 412, 10 ribbies, 2 homers, 6 doubles, a triple, and he slugged .824, and that's all for Derek Lowe.
You didn't have a book on him. He smoked every ball he saw. And that ball right there we just saw was scorched to the 432 mark.
So here comes Bernie Williams with Mike Timlin out of the bullpen.
Runner at third, 1 out, 3-2 pitch. And a chopper. Matsui was late in coming to the plate. He's going to score to tie it.
It was the only play was trying to get him out at home plate, but that ball was just hit perfectly off the plate.
That ball actually took a funny hop, too. It looked like he had it lined up pretty good, and it hit, and it kicked a little bit to his right. Do or die play, just couldn't make it.
It hit a seam or something. It's almost like kick towards Billy. You can see just a little bit out of his reach.
Now it's first and third, 2 out, and Tony Clark, who's 1 for 2 tonight, could put New York back on top with a hit. Timlin's thrown quite a few pitches in the dirt. He grounds to the right side. Bellhorn knocks it down. Can't make a play, and the Yankees lead again.
All right, so on a couple of infield hits, both of them tough plays, no question about it. But on a couple of infield hits, they have regained the lead.
Yeah, this is the big hit that puts them up, and it was just out of reach of Bellhorn.
And this crowd is chanting Pokey for Pokey Reese.
It's almost like he overdove for that ball, hits him right in his heel. A playable ball, okay? Playable ball, tough play, but playable ball. But you start hearing those Pokey chants, that hurts you.
And to me, Kevin, that is very descriptive of the Red Sox crowd. When they're chanting for Pokey Reese, the other second baseman, Francona's going for a little more offense in this game with Bellhorn. But the anxiety is clear in Fenway Park at the moment.
No doubt, and that's the pressure. People talk about pressure in the big markets. You don't get that in Milwaukee. You don't get that in Kansas City. Those are the big market clubs. One inning, all of a sudden they're chanting Pokey, Pokey, and you already feel terrible as a player. Wasn't an error, it was a hit, but yet it'll get you to crawl up if you don't have that makeup.
So now, even though the Yankees have reclaimed the lead, that's a big out to get Jeter to ground out to Bellhorn because they could have padded the lead.
Especially against Derek Jeter, the biggest postseason hitter guy in the league. So that was a big out by Bellhorn making the throw, and we're back in the dugout.
Now, at this point, both starters are finished, so let's take a look at their lines, Derek Lowe and Orlando Hernandez.
Well, it's a good job by Derek Lowe. And don't forget, when he left the mound there, a lot of people thought that was the last pitch he would ever throw for the Red Sox, assuming the Yankees were going to close this series out. He was a free agent, had kind of fallen out of favor there. And boy, did things change for Derek Lowe in the rest of this postseason
No
and
doubt.
the next round.
And we talked about the matchup with the Yankees and Derek Lowe. You know, and that doesn't mean anything or take anything from Derek Lowe, but the matchup wasn't great, and he did a great job and gave us a chance to win.
Mariano is rested. He had last worked in Game 2. There's the usual day off for travel, not that it's lengthy travel, but in addition, there was a rainout, and then the Yankees win Game 3 19-8. So they don't have to use him for 3 days. He's ready to give you 6 outs, and in the bottom of the 8th, he does.
He's been the closest thing to automatic in the postseason as you will ever find throughout history. Strikes out. The 0-2. Varitek with a chopper. The big body of Tony Clark up to get it. The race to the bag. Rivera's there. A rematch this year with the Boston Red Sox. Could end in 4.
Well, Joe Buck had every right to think that it might. Even you guys had to think that it might. Mariano humming along. You're coming up to lead off the bottom of the 9th. Last chance, down by a run.
Our only hope is I'm right-handed. That was because left-handers, you see what he does to left-handers. It's
Breaks
just
their bats.
It's just a chainsaw. Zone, zone. But our only hope was, you know, and personally, I didn't mind facing Mariano Rivera. Not saying you want to make a living off him, but listen, he's a one-pitch pitcher. He's fastball cutter all on the same pitch. He throws inside that front door. I'm thinking in my head, home run.
Well, before we get to that at-bat, here's what Joe Torre was thinking.
9th inning, Mariano going to the mound, knowing how, especially I guess I should have thought in Fenway, you know, he's going to try to be careful with Millar because he was the leadoff hitter, and I was going to tell Mel, tell him not to get too fancy.
Well, he says he was going to send Mel Stottlemyre out there to tell him, but Kevin was the first guy, so he could have told him himself before he left the dugout.
He did. He didn't go with his instincts, but he also remembered the last out of Game 2. Remember that? That was at Yankee Stadium, and Mariano took care of you. But difference is that was Yankee Stadium where he has room to make a mistake. Here we are in Fenway where you like to hook the ball over the wall.
Yeah, that monster looks like it's 200 feet away late in the games. You know, when you see the 8th innings and the 9th innings creep up, it looks a lot closer. But, yeah, I mean, Game 2, he blew me away. You know, elevated the heater, struck me out, whatever it was. Now, I don't know why he didn't say anything because I think Mariano, if you watch the at-bat, and we're going to see the at-bat, kind of was pitching careful.
And we'll look at that at-bat right after this. You're watching MLB Network.
So here we are, Game 4 of the 0-4 ALCS. The Red Sox facing a sweep down to their last 3 outs.
Mariano Rivera will work to the bottom of the order here in the 9th, trying to finish off a sweep.
All right, Kevin, you lead it off against Mariano.
You know, his strength is the cutter, and he throws a front door cutter, which comes at your right-hander's hip, and it makes you freeze in the baseball. But in this at-bat, I'm gonna show you when, you know, he threw one sinker. And why he was trying to throw me in, you know, I don't know why, because you have little room to miss. And right here you can see there's a cutter he misses in. And this next pitch, I'm ahead in the count, and I'm thinking get one pitch over the plate and try to pull that ball as hard as I can, whether it's off the ball or if I get lucky, hit one in the air. And here I almost, you know, might have gave a bloody towel to a fan here in the stands. But this is a 1-0 pitch. That was a good pitch to hit, and you can see it caught some plate. And I just got out front and, you know, hopefully didn't kill anybody over there.
You see in that picture of the stands there, everybody's on their feet. I mean, yeah, they think maybe this is Lucy going to pull out the ball from Charlie Brown one more time.
Right.
But for right now, they believe. The entire park is on their feet with no outs in the ninth.
They're believing until they get an out. And right there, you can see that was a sinker. So that was a sinker that Mariano back then didn't throw many of them. He might throw 10 a year. I mean, he was cutter, front door and then go away and into lefties. But, you know, it's a 2-1 count now. I'm ahead of the count again, so I'm looking for a pitch on the white part of that plate that I can hook out. But this is a dogfight. Right now, the adrenaline and that you feel your heart rate's about 190. You can see, you know, he missed up and in again.
Well, this is what's surprising to me, Kevin. He keeps coming in, and he keeps missing because he knows he can't miss in. So it's almost as if he's overcompensating. And for Mariano, these pitches are missing by a lot.
Yeah, for his control, and we talk about, doesn't walk anybody usually. But, you know, the good ones like Derek Jeter, and their heart rates are about 0. And a guy like myself who's a common player, it's about 1 million. And when he threw that ball up and in, obviously it wasn't even close. It wasn't like I had to really take a tough ball for. I was going to first, and immediately fish-eyed Francona, I was out of there.
You knew if you got on that Roberts would probably run for you, right?
100%. I mean, this is it. This is the game. That's why Dave Roberts is here. And the special thing about this right now, the entire world knows Dave Roberts is going to be stealing.
Mariano throws over 3 times before Roberts takes off. We go to WEEI's Joe Castiglione.
Rivera to the set. He goes, the pitch taken outside. Here's the throw. Roberts dives, and he is safe. Stolen base, Dave Roberts, tying run at second base. He went in with a hand tag. Jeter took the throw. It was close, very close at second. But umpire Joe West said he's safe.
Well, that's how close it was to really pretty much sealing the sweep.
I mean, that was a great throw by Jorge Posada. Great throw. Got up quick, boom, threw it right to Jeter. And you're talking about this. You're talking about 4 inches, 3 inches on just a great tag by Jeter, a great slide by Dave Roberts, safe.
Think about this. A couple of months earlier, similar situation. Dave Roberts came in, pinch ran in the 9th inning. He ran on the 3rd pitch in that game. He comes into this game. You know, it's a cool night at Fenway. It's been a long game. There's not many places to get loose, as you know, in those facilities at Fenway. He didn't plan on running on the 1st pitch. But as we saw, Mariano throws over 3 times. And with each successive throw, Roberts starts getting warm, starts getting loose, more into the flow of the game. And after the 3rd one, that's when he decided, I'm going to take it. And you see Mariano, no slide step. You know, runners were 5 for 6 on him in stolen bases. Like a lot of closers, doesn't hold guys real well, and doesn't go to the slide step.
Roberts, how good was he? 38 of 41. That's almost 93% for the year. Now, Jorge Posada is often maligned for his defensive ability. And as we all know, you tend to steal off the pitcher rather than the catcher. But for whatever it's worth, that year Posada threw out 27% of attempted base stealers. The league average is around 25%. So he was slightly better than the league average.
He did all he could do on this play. I thought he got rid of it quickly, made a good throw. Give credit to Roberts. Had a great read on Rivera. You watched the jump, and it was a terrific jump. He stole the base with the first 2 steps.
Yep. Okay, so now Bill Millar is at the plate. And as is almost always the case in baseball, there's some history there. Millar had hit a game-winning home run earlier in the season off Rivera. Now you got Roberts at second. It's a possible sacrifice situation. The count is 1-0.
And here Billy shows bunt. It's almost like he brought the infield in a little bit. And, you know, whether or not Billy's going to bunt or it wasn't given by Terry Francona, his job is to get Roberts to 3rd base. But he's the one guy in our lineup, the 3rd left-handed hitter, that really hit Mariano hard.
Up the middle. Roberts will come to the plate. The throw by Williams. Bill Millar has tied it.
You're in the dugout. That's your run that Roberts has brought home. We can see what the fans are doing. What are you guys? Well, there you are. How you feeling?
I mean, this is it. We have life. No one ever talks about that single right there by Billy Millar. We know Millar walks, Roberts steals second. How did he get home? Billy Millar, line drive, base hit up the middle, showed bunt 1-0, got a strike. Mariano almost laid that ball in there and 1-1.
And I think you're exactly right. I think he set him up. He showed bunt early, took a strike. That tells me he wasn't bunting. And a lot of times if you're the pitcher and you know someone's bunting, you catch more of the plate to take the out. Billy Millar, too good of a hitter against Rivera to give up the out. Great job by Francona letting him hit.
Catching it up. Minkiewicz had a sacrifice bunt. Damon reached on an error by Tony Clark. Cabrera struck out, and as you just saw, Rivera walks Ramirez to load him up. And here's Ortiz, who can end the game right here.
Right now, you know, we forget it was bases loaded in the ninth with 2 outs to end the game right here. We remember, obviously, we're going to see what happened, you know, later on in the game. But, you know, this was a huge out, and we were on our feet thinking we're going to win the game in the 9th inning. And there's the good cutter. There's the good cutter that he didn't throw Billy Millar because maybe he thought he was bunting.
So Miguel Cairo squeezes it, and we'll go to extra innings.
That's a great job by Rivera. I mean, yes, he blew the save, but he didn't blow the game at that point. Remember, even before the out by Ortiz, he had Orlando Cabrera up, runner on third, less than 2 outs, and he absolutely blew him away. And so Ortiz then was 2 outs where you get the pop-up and the inning.
Did you see the stadium? Did you see the stadium come to life? It was almost like now they forgot we're down 3 games. It was just that one hit by Billy Millar, and the entire stadium was bouncing, rocking, shaking, all 35 to 38,000, whatever they can fit in there. That was the whole turning point, that single.
But it did quiet down after Big Papi popped up. Mr. Clutch pops up, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, wait a second, we didn't win the game. It's tied. This game is still going on here. I'm not so sure they were fully confident at that point.
But we were down in the 9th. So now it's like we got hope. We at least got extra innings. But that stadium started rocking.
How much did it matter at all? I know the adrenaline flows, but it was cold that night, and it got colder the later it got.
Yeah, you know, as a player, you're in the dugout, you have the heaters blowing. Defensively, it matters. That's when you're in defensively, you're in the outfield, you're at first base, third base, shortstop. You got to throw the ball. You have your hand warmers in your back pocket. But in a game like this, honestly, Bob and Tom, you're not feeling anything. You are just trying to win to get to Game 5.
At this point, even though you didn't get the hit from Ortiz, you have to think we're finished with Rivera at least. At least we're finished with Rivera.
Yeah, anytime he's done, I don't care if they're bringing in whoever. If Lee Smith was coming out of retirement, you just felt, wow, thank God he's done. But he, you know, they're going to bring in whoever they're going to bring in, and we felt that we are confident enough to just now we have a chance.
Okay, before the game heads to extra innings, here's Bill Millar on his big game-tying and series-changing hit off Mariano Rivera.
I was able to handle something that was a little bit out over the plate that I could handle and move, and not move very well. I think it was about a 47 hopper up the middle, and get by the infielders and get by him. And I was very fortunate because there's not too many times I think you can recall, or anybody can recall, getting hits off Mariano Rivera.
Lescanic comes on with a bases loaded 2 out, and Bernie Williams is at the plate for New York. Williams flies it into shallow center field. Johnny Damon comes on, and this game's still tied.
So among the many things that tend to fade from memory until you look at the tape again, in any great game, there's all these subplots and all these contributors. How about Curtis Lescanic?
What a story. Think about it. He was released by the Royals that year. That was a team that lost more than 100 games, winds up on the Red Sox, winds up with the bases loaded, season on the line, facing Bernie Williams. Actually, he throws another shutout inning after that. The kicker to the story was that was it for Curtis Lescanic in his career. He did not pitch in the World Series, hung up the spikes after that. What a way to go out.
The winning pitcher in this game, last game in which he ever appeared in the major leagues.
Yeah, we tried to put in money to have Theo carry him just in the 05 season. That's how good of a guy this guy was. But think about it. Bases loaded, 11th inning, 2 outs, Bernie Williams, 0-1 curveball, popped him up, went on to pitch another consecutive inning, and was released by a team that lost 100 games.
Now, succeeding Mariano Rivera, Tom Gordon worked a scoreless 10th and a scoreless 11th. But now he's done, and Paul Quantrill will be on the hill in the bottom of the 12th. The game is still tied at 4 apiece. Manny Ramirez leads it off.
We move to the bottom of the 12th, the 4-4 game, and Paul Quantrill
Tell you what, he has a great sinker. Can spot at both sides of the plate. Righties, he pounds in. And lefties, he tries to throw that front door. Almost Greg Maddox pitch back in the day, we remember.
And Quantrill's no mop-up guy. He was a big pickup for the Yankees that previous offseason to add him to that bullpen in front of Mariano. Here, he's behind him.
And you see him right there going in on Manny. That's where you got to attack Manny, is inside. And Manny was able to fight that ball off and bloop one to left field. But that's when our dugout really started. This is it. You know, this is it. If Manny gets on base, you got Big Papi coming up.
Now it's David Ortiz. Ortiz popped up with the bases loaded, 2 out against Rivera in the 9th. Ortiz into deep right field. Back is Sheffield. We'll see you later tonight.
So Fenway erupts. Here's the welcoming committee at the plate, but it's still 3-1 in favor of the Yankees, and yet the atmosphere feels like something else.
It feels like we've won the series. We are still down. We are still in a hole. We're still behind the 8 ball. But that swing right there by David Ortiz has just lifted the entire city up, and it got us by with what we were saying. Don't let us win Game 4. If they were going to win this series, you better beat us tonight. Because now, Bob and Tom, the matchup started going with Pedro in Game 5, Schilling in Game 6, and that human factor can take over in Game 7.
Now, Game 5 was also an extra inning game, which, if you ask Joe Torre or any of the Yankees, change any one of a half dozen things, and they close you out then.
It was the same type thing. I end up walking. Roberts ends up stealing the base. Ortiz wins it in the 12th, 13th, 14th inning off Loaiza on a wonderful bat. But it was just this game, that swing off Quantrill, really energized and gave us hope.
Let's take a look at some of the numbers from Game 4 at Fenway Park. Starting with the Yankees, that A-Rod home run, which gave them the lead at 2-0 in the 3rd inning, was the beginning of the end for a long stretch of time for A-Rod. Obviously, he came out of it in 2009 when the Yankees won the World Series, but that was the beginning of kind of his postseason dip.
Including in the extra innings, the Yankees had 4 at-bats with runners in scoring position in extra innings and didn't get the kind of hit that obviously David Ortiz did.
Let's look at the Red Sox side of the ledger. And what these numbers don't reflect, unless you watch the whole game, is the situations in which some of these things took place. The raw numbers don't necessarily jump out at you, except for the Ortiz home run.
And that was 1:22 a.m. when Ortiz hit that home run. And actually, Bob, the same day in game number 5, it was about 11 o'clock at night, Ortiz gets the winning hit in that game, a single off Loaiza.
Yeah, it's the same day. And you heard Joe Buck say, "We'll see you later on tonight." I mean, remarkable. You can't put into words what he did. What he did. The at-bat off Loaiza in Game 5 was unbelievable. But he put us on our shoulders to get us. It was almost like to Yankee Stadium, guys, I got you. Let me just get you Yankee Stadium with all the unsung heroes like Curtis Laskanik and all Keith Folks and Tim Wakefield's pitching. But what a remarkable job.
Well, take me inside how draining those 36 hours were, because it was more than 10 hours of baseball, nip and tuck the entire way, fighting for your playoff life in both of those games. Mentally, physically, what was it like going through it?
Mentally is where it's at. I mean, physically, we could do it. We're on game 200, including spring training. It doesn't matter. Your body's numb at this point in 40 degrees, misty rain, whatever. But mentally, you are just grinding every pitch. I mean, every call by the umpire could change a game. Every error, every chopper, every ground rule double. That's what drives you mentally. Drains you mentally. You're just like getting a shower and you're like, wow, let's just sleep real fast and wake back up and we got another ball game.
When you come to Fenway Park, the way that antique ballpark is wedged into the city streets, you come into contact with fans, even as you get out of your car in that tiny little caged-in parking lot. What was the difference, if anything, between what you heard from fans entering Game 4 down 3-0 and what you heard later on that same night down 3-1?
You'd be surprised. They're behind you. They're behind you till the end, till you lose or win. But it was kind of just the mood was a little bit more mellow coming into Game 4. Coming into Game 5 was like, we got hope. You know why? We got Pedro Martinez on the mound. You know, you got Petey on the mound. So you kind of got that, okay, it's 3 games to 1. We win today. We're trying to get this game or this series to New York. And that's the big step, is that we always, it's a cliche, one pitch at a time. But truly, it was. You couldn't think we were going to win 4 straight games to the mighty Yankees.
But as we see here, that's exactly what happened. 4 straight wins against the Yankees.
Here it is, ground ball to second. Reese, the Boston Red Sox have won the pennant.
I never was around a looser bunch than these guys, even down 3-0. And tell me how that came into play when you went to Yankee Stadium. The series obviously is still in their favor, and they're looking at 2 games at home, but it's kind of a miserable, rainy night, Game 6, Yankee Stadium, right? And you went into Terry Francona's office before the game and called out an old friend of yours.
Well, an old friend of ours. I wasn't going to fall for Yankeeography. I said, we're not falling for it. You go there as a visiting player, and they have Bernie Williams, Derek Jeter, Lou Gehrig, and you're up there taking batting practice. The Yankees have music. The visiting players have that, Yankeeography. So that's it. We're not falling for Yankeeography. It was about 46 degrees, misty rain. Told Terry Francona we're not taking batting practice on the field. Here we are in Game 6, Sox-Yankees, Super Bowl, playoffs, and the Sox aren't out there for stretching. The Sox aren't out there taking BP. We hit in the cages. And I walked by an office, and I saw a friend of mine. He's a big prospect. Jack Daniels was his name. Hard-throwing, 96-mile-an-hour whiskey proof.
It was drafted just ahead of Johnny Walker and Jim Beam that year.
That was the same guy. You're right. But you know what? We did a symbolic toast. I'm going to use that, a symbolic toast in the middle of our locker room.
Just a sip.
Just a sip. Just might have hit our lips. Tastes so good when it hits the lips. But truly, we hit in the cages. Jack Daniels, a big prospect, went out there and won Game 6. And you know, if we did that, we had to do it Game 7. So Jack Daniels, our prospect, came out again.
So on you go to the World Series. The Cardinals won 105 that year. Won a terrific LCS from the Astros to get to the World Series. The first game was a high-scoring, close game at Fenway, but then it's all Red Sox. And here's how it ends.
Babe Ruth grounds out to Keith Folk, number 3, Edgar Renteria. We all hear it was like that was the Babe Ruth thing. How weird was that?
Number 3?
Number 3 wore the same number. And you know what? It just was like a relief. Like, wow. We ran over those steps, and I don't know why we didn't get. I think Schilling fell over the railing, but it was me and Bronson Royal and Kurt Schilling jumped over the railing. The feeling, it was like the entire city. It was a family. I mean, there were 6-7 million fans and family members. It just felt like we just did it. We did it. And we knew the Cardinals were tough. You know, people were saying mentally we might be drained. They just didn't match up pitching-wise. Woody Williams, Jason Marquis, Jeff Supan, Carpenter was out with an injury, and Matt Morris was their Game 1 starter. So pitching-wise, they just didn't match up. But my God, what a series we thought that was going to be, and we went right through them.
Well, this team will always have a special place in baseball history. I think when you talk about hopeless causes, the 04 Red Sox, they're the St. Jude of baseball, because everybody will say, well, the Red Sox did it. They were down 3-0. But more than that, Kevin, I think about your place in Boston history. And you didn't grow up there, but I'm sure even probably at that moment, you didn't need any perspective to understand how you changed the culture, changed people's lives, actually, in Boston and all of New England.
It's truly amazing. It's undescribable. You know, it's funny because we look at that now, it's 7 years ago, and it feels like it was yesterday, and I was just telling you guys during the break. But in my heart, you're so far removed from it. 7 years, 3 more years, it's going to be 10-year anniversary. They start bringing us back in 15 years. But it feels like yesterday, and all those emotions, the cold weather, the at-bats, the pitch-by-pitch, the David Ortiz home runs, all that stuff comes in one, and it's just like, it's an amazing feat what just happened. The Red Sox beat the Yankees 4 straight games and then won the World Series.
Can you walk down the street in Boston without somebody stopping you to talk about it? Can you buy yourself a drink, Jack Daniels or whatever, or does someone always grab the tab?
80% of the time I'm getting a shot of Jack Daniels with my meal. I could be having cheesecake, and here comes a shot of Jack Daniels from some fan. I get a hug, I get a thank you from some grandparent, from some little girl. It doesn't matter. Sox Nation's there forever. You're like a rock star in that town. It doesn't matter if you're the 25th player or David Ortiz.
And it never gets old.
Never gets old, Bob.
You know, what you mentioned, how it changed people's lives. Often that would seem overstated. Not in this case. There was story after story of sensible people who took the Boston Globe, the Dan Shaughnessy story or whatever, and laid it at the gravesite of their mother or father or grandmother or grandfather to say, hey, I want you to see this. It finally happened.
Yeah, I actually did a story later on that winter. The 04 Red Sox were the Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year. And I went to some of the graveyards around Boston, and still a month or two after that last out, There were all sorts of pennants, baseballs, newspaper headlines, laminated. It was remarkable. This was for the living and for the dead.
A championship is special, right? Every year there's a champion. A championship, the first one in 86 years for the Boston Red Sox. If you're a fan of baseball or a baseball player, nothing like it.
And it all began with Game 4 at Fenway Park in October of 2004. That was number 17 on our countdown to the top 20. Be with us next time for number 16. For now, so long, everybody.
To the greatest Red Sox team ever.